because they have asked the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration to shut down the physical premises of Good News International Premises and Good News Media House. Plus, of course, there are affiliates that are operating within the Republic of Kenya within 30 days after this Senate adopts this report. Mr. Speaker, it is very important because Kenyans know, and they have seen the footage, where even while this criminal is in court, whenever he makes appearances in court, we still have some people who are foolish enough to celebrate him. So the answer is for the place to be closed down physically. Mr. Speaker, I want to laud the committee that they have asked the Directorate of Criminal Investigations and the Director of Public Prosecutions to initiate the process of freezing the assets belonging to Paul Mackenzie and any other associates, and the proceeds be used to compensate the families of the deceased victims. Mr. Speaker, this is very reflective. Paul Mackenzie, like many such misguided so-called prophets and preachers, they use the pretext of the people's vulnerability to have a better life after death. They convert them into paupers, and in the process, they enrich themselves. It is not surprising, therefore, Mr. Speaker, that the country is abound of preachers who drive fuel guzzlers. Some even have helicopters just to show how good they are at looting the public. Mr. Speaker, the Cabinet Secretary
is always referred to Treasury. So that is why I don't know if how you'll guide me to go ahead, because this question is like the CS is dropping because of the responsibility that he should do. So, Mr. Speaker, I will seek your guidance also to direct that the CS should appear himself, Treasury CS, so that he can be able to answer this question, because I can see he's running away from it. Also, Mr. Speaker, you know you are the chair of SBC, which allocates the businesses of this House. And you know we have no time before the end of this session. So today morning, you allocated time for these CSs and put aside all other businesses that we have in this House. So, Mr. Speaker, when we receive letters in the morning that the CS is not appearing, and we have a lot of pending business, Mr. Speaker, I feel these CSs are not respecting this House, and this is the right time to crack the whip. So, Mr. Speaker, we are very committed to do the work that we're elected to do. And if the CSs are not honoring this House, then they should be sanctioned, Mr. Speaker, so that they can be able to respect this House. This is an honorable House of 47 delegations, and the other 27 elected senators. So, Mr. Speaker, I think with your wisdom, before the end of this session, so that the next year we start on a clean footing, you should really do a letter, especially to the end of state, because he has the responsibility. And he's the one actually who supported the CSs to appear in the two houses. So, Mr. Speaker, I think, you know, this is the first time Senator Sifuna has clapped when I'm giving it. Yeah, so, Mr. Speaker, I want to end there so that at least Senator Sifuna can hand it to where I have left. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Karungu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when we were elected to this House, the President implored us to amend our standing orders for the CSs to appear before us. We had the support of the head of state. So when they don't appear, they don't just show contempt to this House, also to the President of this Republic. And Mr. Speaker, as a feeling of many members, please crack the whip. My committee on roads, transportation and housing, on Monday, after inviting the governor of Kajiado, Olelenku, to appear before us, even after summoning him, he had the audacity of saying that he wouldn't appear 45 minutes before the time the meeting was supposed to start. Mr. Speaker, we fined him, or we gave him a suspended sentence, and fined him $500,000. And if does not appear tomorrow, it will take effect. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, and I want the House to listen to me, because we need to do things differently. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, we also fined the governor of Nairobi, Johnson Sakaja, who happened to be one time a senator of this great county of Nairobi. We have invited him since November 2022. We are in November 2023, 6 times, and he has never appeared, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we gave that fine because we know he won't even appear tomorrow. And if he doesn't, Mr. Speaker, we are going to invoke Section 19 of the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act, that he should be arrested and brought to the committee, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is the high time that this House is taken with seriousness it deserves, Mr. Speaker. And you know, and especially those governors who are senators, they are giving this House a bad name. I mean, they should be the one to really respect this House, because they have been here for about 10 years. And they are the one who are not even appearing in committees. Even my governor of Kiambu, Kimani Wamatangi, Mr. Speaker, has been invited about 6 times. He has not appeared. I think we should crack the whip, because for us, in future, we want to be governors, and we don't want people to say senators were the worst governors. So we have to do it today. And for the CSs who did not appear today, Mr. Speaker, crack the whip. Give them a fine. Invoke Section 19. Because if you don't do that, we will receive the apologies a minute before we get into the House. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Gloria.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For me, I want to weigh in on the issue of the disrespect that the Senate is receiving from this cabinet, Mr. Speaker. I believe that when the Kenya Kwanza government ran for office, we are here for the hustler nation, for the people. What else are the cabinet secretaries so busy doing that they cannot come here to answer questions that the hustlers are asking, Mr. Speaker? Because for me today, I was looking forward to engaging with the Minister of Energy, Mr. Speaker. The bills on KPLC are crazy. The rogue billing, there's a lot of things that are happening under KPLC. And we have questions for the people who have sent us here. We have questions, Mr. Speaker. And I think at the rate at which it's going, Mr. Speaker, then I employ the President to kindly make sure that we have the chief administrative secretaries. Because if the cabinet secretaries are now tired of their jobs, let their assistants come in and do that job, Mr. Speaker. It is at this point when we would really appreciate that if the CSs are not there, they are not available, they are busy, they are traveling, whatever it is they are doing, then their assistants, Mr. Speaker, and those people who are already sworn in, let them come, we engage them. This is part of the duties that they could have been doing. The CSs now are sitting somewhere, and they could have been serving this country, Mr. Speaker. So I urge that even as you crack the whip, perhaps it is now necessary, and I hope that opposition can see the role, some of the duties and responsibilities that the CASs were going to have. I hope that they can see that it is at this point we would have gotten the assistant ministers, Mr. Speaker, to tell us what is happening. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sifuna.
Mr. Speaker, correct me if I'm wrong, but the High Court found that the position of CSS were unconstitutional. We are not going to substitute the people responsible for the ministries for unconstitutional office holders. In fact, Mr. Speaker, if you brought those CSs here, I would not partake of that session. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I think it's the Bible that says that all good things come to those who wait. I don't know if it's the Bible. The Christian fundamentalists are on the other side, they will clarify. Mr. Speaker, I am extremely happy that every single day we have indicated as members of a minority on this floor, because you will remember that this question of appearance of CSs on the floor of this House originated from a presidential memo. It was the president's own idea, sending his own cabinet secretaries to the floor of this House. We, of course, were in opposition of that particular move because we thought, or it was our thinking then, that it was an unconstitutional way to go around constitutional provisions to bring them before the floor of the House. We actually filed a constitutional reference before the High Court. The High Court disagreed with us and said there's nothing wrong with the CSs appearing before the floor of the Senate. And it is not a coincidence that just the second week when the members of the opposition want to engage robustly with these people, they're already running away, Mr. Speaker. It doesn't make any sense. I was looking forward, because we have a serious controversy in this country about the G2G deal. I wanted to look the CS energy in his eyes and ask him those questions that I've written down here, Mr. Speaker. But he has run away. And this is becoming a habit, even in the committees. My chair of the Housing Committee has just elucidated what we're going through in the committees of the House. Because, Mr. Speaker, you invite a governor to answer questions about his own people. The people of Jericho, Lumumba, Maringo were in the committee yesterday waiting to ask questions through their senator to the governor of Nairobi. He just says he has traveled. And my suspicion, Mr. Speaker, is that this COP28 that is happening in Dubai is going to be one of the biggest scandals in this country. When the final list of the number of Kenyans who have gone to Dubai is published, we will be embarrassed as a country. I am happy that as a senator I was told there is no money in the Senate, so I decided to just stay at home. Mr. Speaker, you are aware of this issue. So for us, because some of us have serious contributions to make on the matter of climate change and the environment, Mr. Speaker, but we were denied that opportunity. Now my brother Musalia Mudavadi has gone there. I doubt if he can be more eloquent on issues about the environment as I would have been in Dubai, Mr. Speaker. But anyway, let us see what will come out of that particular conference. So we want to say this, Mr. Speaker. In fact, this morning session was created specifically for these cabinet secretaries. We should have been having our committee meetings.
What is the point of order, Senator Boni?
Mr. Speaker, you have heard the remarks by the distinguished Senator of Nairobi about the cabinet secretary. Mr. Speaker, is he in order to drag into this house the fights between him and Mudavadi over the matter of kingship in their community? Is he in order, Mr. Speaker, to bring such a matter here?
Senator Boni, in fact, you're out of order to the extent that you're rising on a point of order on a senator who is contributing on a point of order. To that extent, your point of order is overruled. Conclude, Senator Sifuna.
Mr. Speaker, let me assure Senator Khalwale that I am not in competition for anything with Musalia Mudavadi. I don't see myself competing with him for anything. I'm just saying, and the communication from the Speaker came that he has traveled to COP. I'm just wondering, because you know, this issue of climate change can better be elucidated. I would rather we send Esther Okenyuri, Senator Okenyuri, or my sister Gloria, because the younger generation have a greater appreciation of these matters than some of these guys. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I am deeply disappointed, and we as a House must put our foot down. I am very happy with the Chair of Transport and Housing, the Honorable Senator Thangwa, that he doesn't joke when it comes to respect for the people and the respect of committees of this House. He has fined people liberally, and I want to encourage you, Chairman, that we are all behind you as senators in that committee. Arrest people, drag them before this House, because some of them, they just fly in and fly out, Mr. Speaker, wanasema Kiswahili, wanabadilisha nguo bandarini. We want them to be arrested at the bandari when they are changing their clothes, to be brought before committees of this House. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mngatana.
Bwana Spika, mimi nilikuwa natarajia kumwona waziri wa kawi Mheshimiwa Chirchir, kwa sababu watu wa Tana River wanajua KETRACO walilipwa pesa ili zile waya zao zipite kwa mashamba ya watu, na watu wanajua mamilioni yalilipwa, lakini wananchi hawakupata hizo pesa. Wananchi wa Tana River wanangojea kuelezwa hizo pesa ziko wapi. Alafu waziri anakosa kukuja na wananchi wanamngojea. Mimi Bwana Spika, ningependa kutoa maoni yangu ya kwamba utoe faini sio ya 1500, lakini faini ya milioni 1 kwa kila waziri ambaye anakosa kufika kwa bunge la Senate. kisha Bwana Spika uandike barua kwa rais kwamba wakati wa kufuta kazi mawaziri, wa kwanza wa kufutwa ni hawa mawaziri ambao wanakosa kufika kujibu maswali ya wananchi. Kwa hayo mengi Bwana Spika, naomba uchukue mkono wako wa nguvu, uwatie adabu hawa watu, manake wanatukosea heshima. Asante Bwana Spika.
Senator Beatrice Agola.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. Honorable Speaker, from the word go, this morning I was very keen on the appearance of the respective cabinet secretaries, and particularly, Honorable Speaker, I really wanted to engage the CS Energy and Petroleum. Honorable Speaker, 1 year ago, I raised an issue of faulty transformers in Homa Bay County. And rightfully, a response was provided to the Energy Committee, and commitments were made by the same CS on repairs that were to be done by the end of July 2022. Honorable Speaker, up to date, no repair has been undertaken as was committed by Kenya Power and REA in Homa Bay County. And it is on that note that I was really interested in the question that was given by Senator James Murango on the replacement of defective power transformers in Mwea constituency. Honorable Speaker, going forward to Senator Mohamed Chute's question, you see the disruption of power supply in most parts of the country. Honorable Speaker, in the last 3 months, we have seen historical blackouts in this country, one ranging for 20 hours, Honorable Speaker, nationwide, and another just the other Saturday for the whole night. Honorable Speaker, this house is a house of representation. The senators here, when they ask questions, they are representing their constituents, and it is by the coming of the cabinet secretaries here that we can get the different responses to the concerns of Kenyans. Honorable Speaker, on the issue that has been mentioned on COP28, I want to state that the issues of climate change are very important. We can see the raging floods all over the county and its effect, and so I support the conference that is ongoing in Dubai and is looking forward to participating. And Honorable Speaker, as I wound up, I did not get the chance, but I want to add my voice in welcoming the honorable members of the County Assembly of Migori, that in the membership present here, some honorable members have worked with in the past in the executive, and some are friends, and we welcome you to the Senate and hope we will continue working together. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I must contribute to this because some of us, we've been around for some time. I remember the second Senate. We used to have a lot of issues with cabinet secretaries where even National Assembly was saying ministers should not appear before Senate. It was a long fight for us to have cabinet secretaries appear before Senate. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I remember in the first Senate, we used to respond even to the questions or statements by members on the floor of the House instead of actually going to committees, just to improve the way issues are responded to. That never worked. In the second Senate, we thought maybe by taking statements to the committees, things are going to be better. But let me say here, Mr. Speaker, we thought, and I think the government went through a very long process to make sure that cabinet secretaries appear before Senate so that we can have direct engagement with them to respond to the issues raised by members and concerns of also members of public. Mr. Speaker, I remember one time we even gotten a warrant of arrest against the then Muranga governor because he refused to appear before a certain committee. Unfortunately, we were frustrated by the IG, we are frustrated by the courts until that guy escaped that warrant of arrest. Mr. Speaker, if we let this go, today none of them appeared here. Next week, the same thing will happen again. Mr. Speaker, we must take a serious action today, not tomorrow. And again, Mr. Speaker, as per our standing orders, if the statements that we have currently are not responded to, that means it will lapse by the time we come back. Please, can you take serious action against these cabinet secretaries who are actually frustrating this house? And I know when they are called by National Assembly, they come running. But to the Senate, they see like this is a lesser house. We must show them that we are equal as far as responsibility is concerned. I thank you.
Senator Kenya.
Asante Bwana Spika kunipa fursa hii. Kwanza kabisa Bwana Spika, hawa mawaziri inaonyeshana kana kwamba hawana heshima yoyote na seneti. Bwana Spika, hawa mawaziri walianza kwa kukejeli na kudhihaki kamati zetu Bwana Spika. Wakiitwa katika kamati hawakuji. Na hata hawasemi chochote Bwana Spika. Sasa wameona ya kwamba tayari wamehitimu Bwana Spika kutoka kwa kamati, sasa wanataka kukujaribu wewe kama spika wa seneti Bwana Spika. Wanangoja kwa hamu na gamu waone utafanya nini Bwana Spika. Usipofanya jambo leo Bwana Spika, seneti itakuwa imezama Bwana Spika. Lakini mimi nina imani ya kwamba wewe kama spika wetu Bwana Spika, najua utafanya jambo. Kwa sababu sisi tulikuja hapa, mimi nilikuja hapa asubuhi mapema, kisa na maana ndio niweze kuona waziri wa kawi Bwana Spika. Nimwambie ni mipango gani alionayo Bwana Spika, kwa sababu sehemu nyingi za Laikipia kwa sababu ya maji Bwana Spika hatuna stima Bwana Spika. Nilitaka kujua ni mipango gani alionayo Bwana Spika, lakini sababu ambazo tunapewa Bwana Spika si sababu ambazo zinatosha Bwana Spika. Hata iko waziri anakuambia asubuhi ya kwamba yeye alikuwa na mipango ingine maalum Bwana Spika. Na katiba ya Kenya inasema ya kwamba katika kipengele cha kwanza kinasema nguvu ni zina wananchi wa Kenya Bwana Spika. Na sisi ndio tunawakilisha wale wananchi wa Kenya. Bwana Spika, ninangoja kwa hamu nione maamuzi yako Bwana Spika. Katika kamati yetu nataka kumshukuru mwenyekiti Karungo Wadhangwa. Jana alifanya jambo Bwana Spika. Alifanya jambo na Wakenya wakaona amefanya jambo. Sasa Bwana Spika, Mswahili anasema kizaliwacho ni kizuri kushinda kinachokizaa. Bwana Spika, ninangoja. Nashukuru.
Senator Muma.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for allowing me to contribute to this important motion, in this important debate. Honorable Speaker, I think what we are discussing is not happening for the first time. Members have complained before about cabinet secretaries not responding in good time, not just for the plenary, but also for the committees. Mr. Speaker, I believe this is the time for us to make a determination as to whether the Senate is a house of parliament or a house of jokes. Mr. Speaker, it is, I think, the highest state of disrespect for cabinet secretaries to receive notification to appear in the Senate at least 14 days to the day they are coming, for them to send you a letter the morning that they are supposed to appear in the Senate. Mr. Speaker, that is the highest demonstration of disrespect for this House. It means they think senators don't have anything to do. Senators can just be on a notice of a few minutes. Their meetings can be called off. We need to send a message that that is not acceptable. We also need to send a message that their own boss, who actually wanted this session to happen, had something serious in mind when he actually proposed that we change standing orders to accommodate them. Mr. Speaker, I suggest that apart from them being summoned, the next appearance the 3 cabinet secretaries should appear without fail, even if we have others, so that if necessary, that session should be extended in order for the meetings to be met. I also suggest that the prime cabinet secretary should also be additionally requested to confer with the other cabinet secretaries to convey the seriousness with which this House takes this session and for them to commit to appear to this. And I suggest, as DS says, the excuse by CS Treasury is not acceptable. Did he just interpret the questions this morning? He has had these questions for 3 weeks. I think they are joking with this House. Mr. Speaker, please crack the whip.
Senator Chute.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I just wanted to know if the letter that went to the CS has got the clause of Standing Order 51C5. 51C5 reads, a Cabinet Secretary shall provide a physical and electronic copy of a response to a question at least 24 hours before appearing before the Senate. If you go to 51D, this is also very clear, Honorable Speaker. The Senate may, where a Cabinet Secretary fails without reasonable cause to appear and respond to questions under this part, move a motion to censure the Cabinet Secretary. Honorable Speaker, I don't know if the letter has got these standing orders written on them. Honorable Speaker, I was to travel to Marsabit yesterday. Because of the question that I posed to the minister in regards to public interest, in regards to the electricity issues some months back, that this country was in darkness for almost 20 hours. And this question was very simple, Honorable Speaker. We have a problem. Is this problem going to repeat? What caused this problem? Who is going to pay that cost? Today, the Cabinet Secretary is not here to answer those questions, unfortunately. Honorable Speaker, I would also want to support what Senator Katuri has said. A widow from Marsabit asked me, she lost her husband about 3 years ago, Jinia Guyo from Marsabit. And she asked me to go to NHIF to see if she can get the dues that's supposed to be payable to her. When I went to NHIF, I was referred back to Ministry of the Treasury. I was told the money is going to be paid from the Treasury. And today, the letter we received today is the Treasury CS is saying this is not his responsibility. It is the responsibility of the Ministry of Health. Honorable Speaker, I know very well, even Senator Kaduri knows very well, that he was also referred back to the Treasury. And he should come here and tell us what part he can be responsible of. And then the other part he can leave the Ministry of Health to deal with. Honorable Speaker, finally, I want to say, Honorable Speaker, please take some action. You remember when I brought the vegetable oil issue to this House, the CS Courier didn't want to come here. And yesterday you've seen in the papers, even today's paper, the lady in charge of KNTC was arrested because of the same issue, vegetable oil. This country have lost over 15 billion shillings, Mr. Speaker. When you see the CSS refusing to come here, there must be definitely something they are hiding. Please, Mr. Speaker, please, you are the father of this House. You are in charge of this House. You are in charge of this Senate. We look at you and see if you are going to take some action. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Kindly take some action. Sansan.
Senator Richard Onyok.
Mr. Speaker, I want to say thank you for allowing me to also talk about this issue. Mr. Speaker, it's very clear that the responsibilities of a senator, other than all the other issues we handle is a matter of legislation. Mr. Speaker, the other issue that the Senate deals with is a matter of oversight. I've just come in this morning expecting the CS to be here. And I've just found he has not appeared. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I'm quite disappointed because Dr. Ndungu was my lecturer in the University of Nairobi in the class of economics. And he always used to say that you must be responsible and you always must be on time, because those are the qualities of good leadership. I'm quite surprised that he hasn't come. The question I was actually going to ask, or which I had asked on the order paper, Mr. Speaker, is about him telling me whether the government has a G-to-G agreement which was signed when the negotiations for the purchase of the oil was taking place. The cabinet secretaries must understand that the responsibility they hold and their job primarily, Mr. Speaker, is to serve this country. Even when they have been selected and nominated by the president to actually work on behalf of the president, they are actually answerable to Kenyans. And those questions that Kenyans are asking us are the ones we want the cabinet secretaries to come and give us answers. And that is how democracy that's how democracy is designed. Our democracy is designed, and again, I've just listened to one of my colleagues say that actually this is the issue of cabinet secretaries coming to this house to answer questions was something that President William RUTO personally engaged himself in. And particularly after the ruling, Mr. Speaker, it means that this is something that is now going to take place in this house, and this is a responsibility of the cabinet secretaries. I would really want, Mr. Speaker, for you to put your foot down. I would want our colleagues to realize that we are here not by accident, we are here by design, and let them know that we are going to hold them to account. The responsibility of this house is oversighting the national government and the county governments, and we take that responsibility very, very seriously. Mr. Speaker, I hope your ruling will be drastic, effective, and will achieve results as fast as we deserve them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also rise to make comments on this. Honorable Speaker, the President basically is the one who requested this House and even National Assembly to amend the standing order so that the CSs may come to this House and answer questions instead of the chairman of the committees or chairs of committees getting responses and coming to reply on the floor of the House. Honorable Speaker, it is deploring that this is not the first time. Even in the past, they have not been coming. And today we expected 3 CSs in this House to come and answer questions. I know most of them, when they are invited by National Assembly, they run there. But when they're invited by Senate, it's like they look for opportunities, they look for excuses so that they don't come to this House. Honorable Speaker, they cannot use COP28 as an excuse, because if the president himself is going to Dubai and the CS in charge of environment, I don't see the reason why the others are going there, and we are trying to have austerity measures to save money. Honorable Speaker, some of us were also invited. The climate change caucus of this House nominated some of us, but we could not go because there are no resources. How come most of all the CSs, more than 50%, want to go to Dubai for COP28 to waste resources? Honorable Speaker, you need to crack the whip, because these CSs will not take us serious if we just let it go the way they think that will excuse them. We need to find them. We need to censor them, Honorable Speaker. And we should not also allow the so-called CSs, Honorable Speaker, to come to the House, because the standing orders are very clear. The cabinet secretaries, on the standing order, there is nothing like a CS. It is the cabinet secretaries who are supposed to come and answer in the House. Yes. So, Honorable Speaker, be firm and crack the whip, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as my colleague Chair Transport had said earlier, about some governors who were senators in this House, the governor for Nakuru, the governor for Nairobi, the governor for Kiambu. They're also very notorious. When they're invited to committees, they don't come. So we need also to ask the chairs, crack the whip, find them, and censor them. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Eddy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today in the morning, I resumed my session, football session, in preparation for, Yala games that are coming in just about a week. And Mr. Speaker, as you know, we don't have any field to be able to train. So we keep on moving from one place to another. And today in the morning, I was training around Magadi Road. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I had to really rush to get here. Through your honor, may you just give me an opportunity to actually welcome the team from Migori. I'm very proud of these members of the delegated duties in the county assembly. And I hope that I'll get time to talk with them in our own tradition in Parliament here. But Mr. Speaker, in the spirit of rushing to get to this house, I also noticed that we actually are having a second week since the court did pronounce itself on the tussle that was between the minority side and the majority side on the issue of whether it was right constitutionally for the cabinet secretaries to be able to appear in this house. And indeed, the court did rule that it is actually okay, to the extent that now you can see the members of the minority side coming. But I do notice that since the ruling, this is the second Wednesday that the members of minority have been coming. And those two consecutive sessions, the members of the cabinet have been behaving in a very funny way. They don't appear. Mr. Speaker, if you go unanswered, you realize that even while the matter was in court, I was always able to come to the house and just listen to what is going on. And I used to notice that the members of the cabinet secretaries used to come religiously and attend their meetings here. I'm beginning to think that perhaps it used to be a tete-a-tete between colleagues from the Kenya Kwanza side. It was just a dialogue, that there was no interrogation, there was no nuance perhaps in terms of engaging the cabinet secretaries. But now that the opposition is here to interrogate, to scrutinize, to be able to actually ask the right questions, they are running from the house, Mr. Speaker. And this is the problem that we had seen. And actually, this also indicts the so-called prime cabinet secretary. Because, Mr. Speaker, the work of the prime cabinet secretary is actually to be able, I'm saying so-called because it's not in the constitution, but it was created anyway. We disputed it as members of the minority side. But now that is there, Article 153 of the Constitution on decisions, responsibilities, and accountability of the cabinet lies squarely with the prime cabinet secretary, because his duty is to be able to supervise and ensure that the members of the cabinet can actually come to this house and answer questions and be held to account. So it is an indictment and a big failure on Honorable Musalia Mudavadi. And before we deal with these individual cabinet secretaries, Mr. Speaker, there has to be a letter from your desk, perhaps directly to the prime cabinet secretary, that is doing very poorly and is embarrassing the entire cabinet because his members are not showing to this house. But more specifically, Mr. Speaker, as I finish, I think that I have seen in other committees that I've been in, whereby if we invite different officials in government and they don't show up, we actually very religious also in terms of actually punishing. We punish by summon because we are mandated to do so. We punish by fines because we're mandated to do so. Mr. Speaker, the censorship that I'm expecting under Standing Order number 51D is a censorship that goes with punishing these cabinet secretaries with fines. And Mr. Speaker, I hope that these fines can not only be for the House, but also somebody like Senator Kinyua and Senator Chute. On that fine, Mr. Speaker, if you can be, courteous enough, you can be able to make sure that Senator Kinyua gets his 500,000, Senator Chute gets his 500,000, Senator Gloria gets his 500,000, majority leader gets his 1 million, so that they know that this house is a very serious house, that people must learn to respect our time, because that time is extremely valuable. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I support I support the censorship from your desk to these cabinet secretaries. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, honorable senators, I have taken time to allow a number of us to ventilate on this particular matter. Indeed, it is very serious. Now, if you look at the 3 letters that are referred to this morning, none of them contained a reason that is an emergency. Meaning, all the 3 CSs, they knew that they were not going to appear before the Senate many days ago. Courtesy demands that they ought to have communicated to the Senate, so that when we were sitting in SBC, we could have then dropped their questions because under their request, and picked other CSs for purposes of responding to their questions today. Now, honorable senators, we have over 60 questions in the queue. We could not pick other questions because we were convinced yesterday when we sat in SBC, in fact, not yesterday, last week, we were convinced because there was no communication to the contrary that the CSS will appear before this House for purposes of responding to these questions. Indeed, receiving this communication this morning is the epitome of discourteous. Now, honorable senators, this House is not a house of lamentations. It is a house of actions. But our action must rest either on the Constitution, statutory law, or our standing orders. Many of you standing to contribute to this particular point of order invited me to be firm on the CSs. I have come through the Constitution, statutory law, and a standing order to see where the Speaker can be able to punish these CSs. If I had any powers to punish these CSs, honorable senators, that day would be now, not tomorrow, as you had invited me. Now, honorable senators, I will invite you to our standing orders, more particularly Standing Order 51D. 51D. Now, the punishment that our CS invites for non-attendance for purposes of responding to this question is contained in our standing order, more particularly Standing Order 51D, a motion of censure. Now, honorable senators, the Speaker of this House cannot file a motion. I can only moderate debate, facilitate debate, to make sure you do the right thing. If indeed, honorable senators, you are persuaded that the behavior of these CSs is unbecoming, invoke Standing Order 51D. As your Speaker, I'll be here to moderate that motion. In that motion, you may resolve any punishment. You can pass a resolution that these CSs be fined to the extent of whatever amount of money this House will resolve. How I wish I have the powers to punish these CSs. I will do it today. So, honorable senators, please, please, do not allow this House to be disobeyed. Kindly invoke Standing Order 51D, and as a speaker, I'll be here to moderate that debate. But this behavior cannot be left unpunished. I hope in the coming days on my desk, I'll see a motion. I will not hesitate to approve that motion of censure. So, honorable senators, do the right thing. Thank you. Honorable Clerk, next order, please. Now, honorable senators, if you look at today's order paper, Order 8, Order 9, Order 10, Order 11, Order 12, Order 13 through to Order 14. Those are orders that are supposed to proceed to the Committee of the Whole. Clearly, we do not have the numbers to prosecute those orders. And therefore, we will defer those orders and will proceed to order number 15. That is the motion on the Shakahola report. I will therefore invite the clerk to read that order so that debate then resumes on that particular motion. Honorable Clerk.
Order number 15, motion. Report of the ad hoc committee to investigate the proliferation of religious organizations and circumstances leading to more than 95 deaths in Shakahola, Kilifi County. Resumption of debate.
Now, honorable senators, at the interruption of debate on this particular matter, that was on Tuesday, the 28th of November, 2023, the Honorable Boni had the floor and he had a balance of 19 minutes. I will therefore invite the honorable senator to proceed to make his contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just started before it was time up for the adjournment of the House. And I'd acknowledged the good work that has been done by this committee, led by the distinguished Senator of Tana River, Senator Mungatana. And because he moved the motion very clearly, using very articulative means, I don't want to belabor, but I just want to appreciate some of the salient points that I've found in this committee's report. Mr. Speaker, the committee has been humble enough to realize the complexity of the work at hand and come out with 1 to 9 action points, which it has recommended to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations and the DPP to take up, let it undergo the due process so that this criminality should be brought to an end. I allowed them, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Further to this, I want to appreciate the committee because they have asked the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration to shut down the physical premises of Good News International Premises and Good News Media House. Plus, of course, there are affiliates that are operating within the Republic of Kenya within 30 days after this Senate adopts this report. Mr. Speaker, it is very important because Kenyans know, and they have seen the footage, where even while this criminal is in court, whenever he makes appearances in court, we still have some people who are foolish enough to celebrate him. So the answer is for the place to be closed down physically. Mr. Speaker, I want to laud the committee that they have asked the Directorate of Criminal Investigations and the Director of Public Prosecutions to initiate the process of freezing the assets belonging to Paul Mackenzie and any other associates, and the proceeds be used to compensate the families of the deceased victims. Mr. Speaker, this is very reflective. Paul Mackenzie, like many such misguided so-called prophets and preachers, they use the pretext of the people's vulnerability to have a better life after death. They convert them into paupers, and in the process, they enrich themselves. It is not surprising, therefore, Mr. Speaker, that the country is abound of preachers who drive fuel guzzlers. Some even have helicopters just to show how good they are at looting the public. Mr. Speaker, the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Administration must declare the Good News International Ministries and Good News Media House Limited as organized criminal gangs. These are criminal gangs, and I am very, very personally offended by the lack of cooperation on the part of Professor Kindiki when this committee wanted him to help the committee to have witnesses appear before them. Mr. Speaker, it was unfortunate that the professor of law said he was going to speak for the witnesses. Since when? Since when did a minister speak for a criminal? Since when did a minister have privileged information that he could give to a serious committee like this one? I want to appeal to my younger brother, Professor Kindiki. Humble yourself. You should have allowed Kenyans who wanted to give evidence to do so. What are you protecting, Professor? If the DCI, the NIS, was able to appear before the committee, and where they thought certain pieces of evidence required secrecy, they applied for being heard in camera. Our professor has been a deputy speaker in this house. Our professor has been leader of the majority in this house. He knows these privileges. Or was he deliberately trying to frustrate the committee of the Parliament of the Republic of Kenya? Your Excellency, President William Samoei Ruto, we are going to help you to get rid of non-functional ministers who are for anything else as good as dead wood. Mr. Speaker, why would a minister make it difficult for a committee of Parliament to deliver? Oh, when I think about the grief in Kakamega, in the villages of Mumias, in the villages of Ikolomani, in the villages of Shinyalu, in the villages of our community, when we learned that our teachers, some of our teachers had died in Shakahola, I have no kind words for anybody who shielded the exposure of these criminals. Mr. Speaker, in this elaborate report, which I'm glad that now all members are acquainted with, the committee is asking the National Police Service Commission to severely sanction security officers whose acts of commission and omission aided or abetted the Shakahola tragedy 30 days from now. Mr. Speaker, so that it remains evidently clear to the Republic of Kenya that civil servants, senior security officers, they drink and dine on the blood of the poor. The committee has been very specific. It has said on page 135, Mr. Speaker, that Mr. Joseph Kemboi, the senior superintendent of police in charge of the sub-county police commander in Malindi, should be disciplined. Charles Kamau Wangu, the assistant superintendent of police, the criminal investigation officer in Malindi, should be disciplined, as should Simon Odera, superintendent of police, sub-county police commander, as should Mr. Guracha, the superintendent of police, critical infrastructure protection unit in Malindi, as should Augusto Akuna, officer commanding police station in Malindi, as should Hassan Hamara, officer commanding police station, Langobaya, and Calvin Maloa Otieno, the DCI of Malindi, Daniel Mudusi Muleli, the county criminal investigation officer, Jacinda Wesonga, county police commander, Paul Maweu, critical infrastructure protection unit officer, and Joseph Yator, police officer attached to Directorate of Criminal Investigations. They should be disciplined. Mr. Speaker, why I'm reading out these names in this august house is so that members of the public in Shakahola, in Malindi, in Kilifi, in Coast, everywhere in Kenya, should not obey any instruction from any of these officers, should the usual nonsense of government of transferring police officers who are supposed to be sacked be the practice in this case. I can assure any of them, if they appear in Kakamega on transfer, I will request politely the bullfighters of Khaega to resist.
Honorable Bonnie, are you calling for civil disobedience in Kakamega? Kindly withdraw that statement and proceed with your very good contribution.
Mr. Speaker, I am so directed, and I do. But let it be understood that in our community, we say, he who is mourning knows no shame. This is, in this debate, I'm mourning. I have been to those homes. In fact, in some of the homes, Mr. Speaker, we have already buried wet banana stems. In our culture, you bury a wet banana stem when you have lost out all the possibility of ever bringing your beloved one to be buried home. Because having stayed in Kilifi, our families have been there for months on end. And it is either DNA or what cannot be found, and therefore they are unable to know who amongst all these bodies is indeed their own beloved one. So they have buried bananas. I therefore withdraw that remark and appeal to the security organs to ensure that disciplinary action is taken against these criminals who are in uniform. The committee recommends also at 448 that Parliament enacts the proposed Religious Organization Bill 2023 to provide legislative framework for the regulation of religious organizations and establishment of Office of the Registrar of Religious Organization, registration framework, qualification of religious leaders, offenses and penalties for non-compliance. Mr. Speaker, if I had the power, and I don't have, I would convert Senator Mungatana's committee into a special committee to work on this bill. This bill must be available. The tragedy that is Shakahola has now given us the opportunity, the reason, the courage, the excuse for us to face our religious leaders and tell them, you are going to be regulated. Religious organizations must be regulated. Why do we have the Bible? Why do we have the 10 Commandments? Why do we have the teachings of the disciples of Jesus Christ? Why do we have the teachings of Prophet Muhammad in the Quran? Those teachings are meant to set standard so as to regulate. So regulation is already provided for in the Bible, it is provided for in the Holy Quran, is provided for even in the Constitution. We must regulate churches. There are far too many. Let me tell you, from Shigalagala Junction to Marinya, on the road from Shigalagala to Butere.
Senator Boni Karwale, what is your point of order?
Yes.
Senator Okech.
Mr. Speaker, you know, I wouldn't at all want to, and I'm raising understanding order number 105 on statement of fact. I wouldn't at all want to, you know, interrupt the cadence with which the majority whip is already presenting, and these are very passionate issues that I know that we worked on very, very well. But I want just to say that, you know, the chapter and the report that you have just read is not on the regulation of churches, is on the regulation of religious organizations, which is inclusive of churches. I want to stress this because one of the eminent challenges we faced, Mr. Speaker, when we were conducting, you know, public participation in the entire exercise, it was assumed that we are only making a recommendation to attack or regulate churches. The regulation is for all religious organizations that are not limited to churches. So, Senior, that's what all the cadence I wanted you to go with. But sorry for interrupting, but it's important to emphasize on that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That was actually a point of information which you have received.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to laud him for that piece of information. But Senator Omigori, if anybody has sent you to this house to be interrupting the Senator of Kakamega when I'm debating, go and tell him that the strategy is for you to wait for your time and then debate.
Senator Mboli,
Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Ndokech is very much in order to inform you or to seek clarification. That is why he's in this house. Don't gag him for that purpose.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And utilize your minutes. You are
Mr. Speaker.
So well now, clear your minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, if he wanted to inform me, he would have asked me to allow him to inform me, and I would have gladly have done so. I'm just helping him to be a better legislator. And I can assure you, you have an opportunity to be a better legislator in this house. If you talk to Senator Mungatana.
Senator Bone, you should not talk to your colleague directly.
Mr. Speaker, sir.
You see, you know I'm not here just by chance. I'm here to present the House. So if you could start communicating to your colleague directly, then you better tell me to go and look for or plug my tea in Meru.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm guided. You know, I was speaking to the Holy Quran and the Bible, and I'm not too sure which verse in the two books, but there's a provision that blessed are those who believe when they don't see. Mr. Speaker, sir, In paragraph 509, the committee recommends that the Director of Criminal Investigations investigates the relationship between Paul Mackenzie and Ezekiel Odera with a view of establishing any criminal culpability of Ezekiel Odera in aiding or abetting the event in Shakahola tragedy within 30 days of the adoption of this report. Congratulations, my brother Mungatana. This particular recommendation will stand for many years, because when you are frustrated by some civil servants, Mungatana and your team, when you are frustrated by some forces that we have come to learn later, in your efforts to get down to this, you took the unprecedented initiative of going to Mavueni, Mavueni, and the country raised eyebrows. The country thought, the country feared that probably Parliament was being compromised. But now that you have come out with the recommendation 509, we respect you. You are holding the name of this Senate high, that it is out of the frustration by functionaries of government that forced you to do the unprecedented by going to Ezekiel Odera's church in the manner you did. I want to appeal to Pastor Ezekiel Odera. Parliament was in your place. The children of God have died because they believed in the teaching of Paul Mackenzie. Pastor Ezekiel, I appeal to you from the bottom of my heart. Because of the blood of those children, please come clean.
Senator Professor Margaret Kamar. Senator Mwijaji Mohamed Faki.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia ripoti ya kamati ya uchunguzi ya Shakahola. Mheshimiwa Spika, nianze kwa kuipongeza kamati hii ambayo inaongozwa na Senator wa gatuzi la Tana River, Mheshimiwa Danson Buya Mungatana, na kamati nzima ikiwamo pamoja na mimi mwenyewe binafsi. Tulihudumu katika kamati hiyo katika hali ambayo ilikuwako ni ngumu kidogo, Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sababu baadhi ya mambo ambayo tuliyapata yalikuwa yanahitajia uchunguzi wa kina, lakini kwa sababu tulifungiwa mfuko wa kufanya uchunguzi, vile vile tukazuiliwa kuwaona baadhi ya mashahidi na kuwahoji. Mheshimiwa Spika, kazi ya kamati ilikuwa kidogo ni ngumu, lakini tuliweza kujitahidi na tukaja na ripoti ambayo ripoti hii, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni muhimu sana kwa nchi yetu. Kwanza kabisa, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kwamba swala hili la mkurupuko wa mashirika ya kidini ni jambo ambalo lilikuwa halijaangaliwa katika nchi yetu mpaka alipokuja Pastor Mackenzie na kanisa yake, ndio watu wakaona kwamba kuna hatari ambayo iko na baadhi ya watu walikuwa washapoteza maisha yao. Kwa hivyo ilikuwa ipo haja ya serikali kuweza kuingilia masuala ya mkurupuko wa dini hizi tofauti. Mheshimiwa Spika, imekuwa sasa ni rahisi mtu yoyote akitaka kufungua kanisa ama akitaka kufungua kanisa ama shirika lote la dini, ni ashike Biblia, asimame Jivanji ama asimame pale Mama Ngina Mombasa, ahubiri, baada ya wiki moja, wiki mbili, kanisa imesimama. Mheshimiwa Spika, ipo haja ya kuweza kuwa na kanuni za kuweza kusimamia mashirika ya kidini, kwa sababu hakuna mahali, hata sisi hapa katika bunge, kuna mambo ambayo tunaweza kufanya na kuna mambo ambayo hatuwezi kufanya. Kwa hivyo haiwezekani kwamba mashirika ya kidini watajificha chini ya uhuru wa kuabudu na kufanya mambo ambayo ni kinyume na maadili, ni kinyume na dini zao, na vile vile pia ni kinyume na kanuni za nchi yetu ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, mauaji ya Shakahola hayakuanza na Pastor Mackenzie. Mheshimiwa Spika, Shakahola kwa muda mrefu, kwa vile inapakana na mbuga ya wanyama ya Tsavo, ilikuwa ni mahali ambapo wale watuhumiwa wa mauaji ya kiholela ya polisi walikuwa wakitupwa pale. Na hili ni swala ambalo hata polisi wenyewe walikuwa wanajua, kwa sababu wakati uchunguzi ulipoanza, wale ambao walikuwa wametupwa mwanzo, polisi walijaribu kuwapuuza kwa sababu walikuwa wanajua ni jambo la kawaida. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, tungependa uchunguzi zaidi ufanywe kuhusiana na wale ambao walipotezwa, hususan katika sehemu za pwani, kwa sababu wengi ambao walikuwa wakipotea, Mheshimiwa Spika, zile simu zao zilikuwa zinapotea maeneo ya Malindi karibu na msitu wa Shakahola. Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna baadhi ya mambo ambayo bado yanaendelea katika masuala ya Shakahola. Kwa mfano, Mheshimiwa Spika, wako wale ambao walichukuliwa kama manusura katika ile sehemu ambayo Pastor Mackenzie alikuwa anahudumu. Wale ambao walichukuliwa kwamba sio wanaofanya mauaji ama sio wanaofanya vitendo vya kinyama vya kinyume na sheria, lakini wao ni waathiriwa ambao walikuwa wamepatikana pale. Mheshimiwa Spika, waathiriwa hawa mpaka sasa bado wako Shimo la Tewa na wamewekwa pale kama hifadhi. Mheshimiwa Spika, mnamo mwezi wa 8 kabla ya kupelekwa gereza la Shimo la Tewa, hawa Mheshimiwa Spika walikuwa wamepewa hifadhi katika shule moja ya kibinafsi pale Mtwapa. Na tarehe 12 Agosti mwaka huu walikuwa wamepanga kujiua wote pamoja. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, baadhi yao walitoa hizi habari na maafisa wa usalama wakawachukua wote wakawapeleka katika gereza la Shimo la Tewa, ambapo mpaka sasa bado wanaendelea kufanyiwa uchunguzi na vile vile kufanyiwa ushauri nasaha, yani counseling, ili kuhakikisha kwamba zile fikra walikuwa nazo za kuweza kutoa uhai au mwisho wa ulimwengu unakuja ziweze kuondoka katika fikra zao. Mheshimiwa Spika, tungependa pia kupongeza mahakama, Mheshimiwa Spika, hususan mahakama ya Shanzu. Mahakama ya Shanzu ambayo baadhi ya washukiwa wamewekwa pale na wanapelekwa pale, na vile vile wale ambao wamepewa hifadhi na Shimo la Tewa pia wanakwenda koti ile mara kwa mara ili kuweza kuitikia na kuweza kuangaliwa ni vipi ambavyo wataweza kusaidika waweze kuwarejea katika jamii. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika,
point of order.
Mr. Speaker, I raise under Standing Order number 98. Mine is just, I need your direction. Because when you look at this report, would it be neat and in order for the committee members who authored the same report to be the ones contributing last? Because they had opportunity, it is like they're having the second bite to the cherry. Would it be neater to have them even contribute at a later stage, because they had opportunity to enrich the report? Why don't we be given chance so that we can contribute to the report, so that we don't give them opportunity to prosecute these matters at the committee level? And I'm not saying they don't have a right, they have, but for neatness and opportunity to hear also our thinking, because at least their thinking is there. Was it, Speaker, maybe you can guide, because understanding order number 1, Speaker, you have powers to provide direction to the House. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Chalagay, you know, members of the committee also have a lot of information that you don't have. So balancing the two sides is better, so that also members can benefit from those who went to the investigation. So leave that to me, and I don't want to explain what I'm doing here. But for your benefit, you see, I have a list on my light. The report is here. I know the membership. And then also have the dashboard. You know, Senator Charigay, I'm not foolish as I look. So I know exactly what I'm doing. Can you clear your time, Senator Mohamed Faki?
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, saa nyingine ukweli unauma, kwa hivyo watakuja kama hawa waweze kupinga na kujaribu kusitisha mtiririko wa mawazo wa wale wanaochangia. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, tunasema kwamba mahakama imefanya kazi nzuri so far, japokuwa mahakama za awali Mheshimiwa Spika zilimpa Pastor Mackenzie uhuru mwingi ambao ulikuwa haustahiki kupewa kulingana na maswala ambayo alikuwa yanachunguzwa wakati ule. Mheshimiwa Spika, tumeona pia kuna watu wengi ambao wamehusika katika masuala ya Shakahola, wale ambao kwa Kiingereza tunaita first responders, Kenya Red Cross, yale mashirika ya haki za kibinadamu, polisi, watu wa upasuaji, pathologists, Mheshimiwa Spika, ambao wameweza kufanya kazi nzuri kabisa kuweza kusaidia jamii na kusaidia waathiriwa kuweza kupata nafuu na vile vile kupata ushauri kutokana na majanga ambayo yameweza kuwakumba, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo tunasema Mheshimiwa Spika, kama Red Cross wametoa mchango mkubwa Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sababu wale waliokwenda kule, kwanza kulikuwa hakuna structure yoyote ama mfumo wote ambao ulikuwa umewekwa, lakini kwa uwezo wao Red Cross wakaweza kuchangia pakubwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, mpaka sasa ile miili ambayo imewekwa kule Malindi mochari, Mheshimiwa Spika, imewekwa katika hifadhi ya Red Cross. Mheshimiwa Spika, wametoa container ambayo iko refrigerated ama imewekwa barafu na wale miili yote imeweza kuweka pale. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo la kusikitisha ni kwamba licha ya kwamba tulikuwa na janga la COVID miaka 2.5 iliyopita, serikali ya kaunti ya Kilifi, Mheshimiwa Spika, walikuwa hawakuweza kujitayarisha kuwa na mochari ama kuwa na hifadhi ya kutosha kuweza kuweka mili mingi kama ambavyo walitarajiwa kufanya wakati walipopewa pesa za COVID mwaka 2021, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kwamba kaunti zetu pia lazima ziwe zina uwezo fulani wa kuweza kujitayarisha, Mheshimiwa Spika. Haiwezekani kwamba janga kama hili limetokea katika kaunti ya Kilifi na hatuena uwezo wa kuweza kuhifadhi miili ya wale ambao wameathiriwa, Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, nakubaliana na mapendekezo yote ambayo yamependekezwa hapa, Mheshimiwa Spika, kwamba lazima uchunguzi ufanywe. Tumeona kwamba waziri wa usalama wa ndani, Mheshimiwa Spika, Profesa Kindiki alizuia baadhi ya mashahidi kuweza kuja kutoa ushahidi hapa, Mheshimiwa Spika. Alimzuia waziri Asha Juma kuja kutoa ushahidi, Mheshimiwa Spika, wakati waziri Asha Juma alikuwa ni mtu wa kwanza kuweza kuonesha bendera nyekundu kuhusiana na masuala ambayo
yalikuwa. Mohamed Faki, samani kidogo. Kuna haja ya nidhamu hapa, hoja ya nidhamu. Kwa Senator Chalgei.
Mr. Speaker, sir, again standing order 98 and our standing orders. The Senator of Mombasa is a senior member in this House. He knows that if you want to discuss an individual, you bring a substantive motion. Why is he? Mr. Speaker, can you protect me? Mr. Speaker, can you protect me? Mr. Speaker, can I be heard? I've been listening. Mr. Speaker.
Order, Senator Onyonka, order. Let him execute his point of order.
Correct.
If you have a contrary opinion, I can give you.
Mr. Speaker, the good member, and I don't mind the noises and echoing. I think my brothers have missed demonstration. They will go back soon. Mr. Speaker,
what is your point of
Mr.
order?
Speaker,
Go direct to
but
our
Mr.
point of
Speaker,
order, kindly.
if Senator Faki want to discuss the Minister of Interior, Professor Kithure Kindiki, a distinguished professor, he should bring a substantive motion, Mr. Speaker. He cannot be mentioning people's names. That the other time we tried to mention some individual names of leaders, it is our other side who told me, Mr. Speaker, to bring a substantive motion. We cannot have a law that serves differently on our side. Mr. Speaker, let Senator Faki to withdraw and apologize for mentioning Senator Professor Kithure Kindiki or bring a substantive motion, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, can you protect me from Senator Onyonka? So understanding 98 and 1 and the standing on substantive motion, Mr. Speaker, I request that that part, the Senator of Mfaki, withdraw mentioning Senator Professor Kithure Kindiki and bring a substantive motion. And we are willing to prosecute, Mr. Speaker. If he wants to discuss Professor Kithure Kindiki, we don't have a problem. But he must bring a substantive motion before the floor of the House, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, he should refrain, because we cannot be mentioning people, Mr. Speaker, at the expense of just gaining political convenience, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I request that you rule Senator Faki out of order. Senator Eddie, Mr. Speaker, is pointing at me, and you know his name is not on the list to Rwanda. So I don't know why he's even troubling himself, pointing at me. Mr. Speaker, can you rule him out of order?
So, Senator Chariye, I was trying to listen to Senator Faki, whether he is really speaking on the conduct of the CS Kithure Kindiki. But I think he has just mentioned a content that is in this report, somewhere in the observations. So I don't feel like he has really entered into that area, discussing his conduct. Yeah, so we just don't enter into that space, Senator Faki. But if it is something in the report, I don't think you are not out of order.
Nimjibu Senator Cherargei kwa sababu yeyote anayosema
proceed and clarify what you meant.
Yako katika ripoti hii, Mheshimiwa Spika. Shida ni kwamba Mheshimiwa Spika, hawa watu wanaingia.
Clarify what he meant before I give any other member. Senator Mohamed Faki.
Mheshimiwa Spika. Shida Mheshimiwa Spika, Senator Cherargei ni kama wale tunaitana wanagenzi. Mshasikia hajasoma ripoti, yeye akisikia waziri ametajwa anaruka. Kumetajwa mawaziri watatu hapa na watu wakakubaliana kwamba they need to be punished. Ulikuwa wapi? Mawaziri watatu wametajwa leo hapa katika bunge hili. Na kiongozi wa wengi yuko pale na atakwambia kwamba na speaker akasema kwamba waadhibiwe. Wajua saa nyingine Cherargei, leo ni Jumatano. Jumatano, ngoja Mheshimiwa Spika. Jumatano iliyokwisha Mheshimiwa Spika, Cherargei alifukuzwa hapa asubuhi. Kwa hivyo kama ataka kufukuzwa tena, naendelee kuninterrupt Mheshimiwa Spika. Tunasema Mheshimiwa Spika.
Senator Sifuna, what is it?
You know, Mr. Speaker, I have made this appeal to the Speaker before and members of the Speaker's panel, that in fact these standing orders protect us from frivolous points of order. Yes. I have not seen this particular standing order 121 B being effected by members of the Speaker's panel, because every single time, and the members who are notorious for these things are known, Mr. Speaker. We need at this particular point in time to cut out these frivolous points of orders, false points of orders that interrupt debate in this particular house. Some people are just here to shout points of order, and when they stand up, they have nothing to say, no content whatsoever.
Sifuna, before a member stands up on a point of order, how can the chair lead his mind?
That is not the point.
So
after
you
Mr.
must
Speaker,
raise his point of order, then the chair will rule.
Mr. Speaker, you have misunderstood me.
As I've done that, there
you have misunderstood me,
no
Mr. Speaker. You have misunderstood me. Understanding Order 121. Understanding Order 121, there needs to be a time when a ruling is made that somebody is repeatedly making false points of orders. After you have determined that this point of order is frivolous and useless, what is the action that is taken? That is what we want to see, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Sifuna, also if you check on standing order, I think 101, you can raise a motion in this house to discuss the conduct of another senator. Substantive motion. So you can have that list, then we discuss them and put them in order. So you have that space to do that. So no point of order again. Finish me.
Mheshimiwa Spika, nafikiri dakika zangu zilisimamishwa. Niko na kama dakika 15 bado. Mheshimiwa Spika, nilikuwa nasema kwamba Waziri Asha Juma ambaye alikuwa ni mbunge wa zamani wa eneo bunge la Malindi, ambapo ili eneo la Shokahola lilikuwako, ilikuwa ni shahidi muhimu Mheshimiwa Spika kuweza kuletwa katika kamati ili kuweza kueleza ni mambo gani ambayo alikuwa ameona awali kwa huyu Pastor Mackenzie ambayo polisi ama walinda usalama hawakuweza kuyachunguza ili kuhakikisha kwamba tukio kama ile Shakahola limeweza kuwa kudhibitiwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, tumeona pia kwamba Daktari Johansen ambaye ndio mkuu wa upasuaji, Mheshimiwa Spika, hakuruhusiwa pia kuja kwa kamati kuja kutoa ushahidi wake. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, hatujui ni jambo gani ambalo Dr. Johansen angeweza kulizungumza kwa kamati yetu ambao labda lingekuwako ni kinyume na usalama wa taifa. Tulimuona mkuu wa usalama Mheshimiwa Haji, Mheshimiwa Spika, Nurdin Haji alikuja kwa kamati na akatoa ushahidi bila shida yoyote, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hivyo tunasema Mheshimiwa Spika kwamba katika kuzuiliwa kwa kamati hii kufanya uchunguzi wake kikamilifu ilikuwa kwa Mheshimiwa Spika ni makosa kwa waziri wa usalama wa ndani kuzuia mashahidi kuja kutoa ushahidi katika kamati yetu. Mheshimiwa Spika, mwisho ni kwamba tulipata fursa pia ya kwenda kwa ofisi kuu za DCI, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na kwa kusema kweli Mheshimiwa Spika, DCI yetu ni moja ya DCI ambazo zina utaalamu mwingi na zina vifaa vingi vya kuweza kufanya kazi, Mheshimiwa Spika. Lakini jambo la kusikitisha ni kwamba budget ama pesa zinazotengwa kwa shughuli zao muhimu, Mheshimiwa Spika, zimekuwa haba sana. Tukiangalia Mheshimiwa Spika, tulipokuwa pale, hata ule wino wa kufanyia fingerprinting ili uchukuliwe vidole uweze kufanyiwa ile inaitwaje certificate of good conduct ilikuwa pia imepungua. Mikataba mingi ambao wamefanya na mashirika ambayo yanaleta vile vifaa vyao, kwa mfano zile maabara ambayo yanatumika kuchunguza mambo mengi pale katika, Mheshimiwa Spika, zimekwisha na pesa hazijalipwa. Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, ipo haja ya serikali, kwa sababu DCI inafanya uchunguzi wa masuala ya jinai, masuala ya uhalifu. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni shirika muhimu katika nchi yetu, kwa hivyo lazima liweze kupata pesa za kutosha ili ziweze kuzuia maafa kama haya Shakahola na maafa mengine ambayo yanaweza kutokea katika nchi yetu ya Kenya, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, naunga mkono ripoti hii na ningependa kwamba Senate iweze kuikubali na yale zile taasisi ambazo zimeombwa zifanyie kazi, ziweze kuifanyia kazi, tuone kwamba dini ambazo ama mashirika ya kidini ambayo yana tashwishi na yanafanya mambo kinyume na sheria na kinyume na maadili na vile vile pia kinyume na vitabu vya Mwenyezi Mungu zimeweza kusimamishwa ili wananchi waweze kuishi kwa usalama. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii.
Thank you. Next is Majority Leader and Kericho Senator.
That investigated the proliferation of religious organizations and circumstances leading to more than 95 deaths in Shakahola, Kilifi County. The first thing, Mr. Speaker, that I'd wish to say about this report is that I appreciate the industry that went into its preparation and the work that has been done by our colleagues who took time. I think I watched them a couple of times, listen to witnesses, interrogate them, establish where there are gaps in legislation, statutes, regulations, and so on and so forth, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our colleagues actually did an impressive, this is a stellar job. However, Mr. Speaker, there are quite a number of glaring gaps that are in this report which, as we appreciate and celebrate their work, as a Senate we must ask ourselves, how do we move forward from here? Because the committee has established and has done direct linkage between the so-called Mackenzie, the fake pastor, and the crimes that were committed. And there are people along the line that contributed to this happening, actually, Mr. Speaker. And I have seen that further down the report, the ad hoc committee has given sanctions and recommendations to the various bodies and state agencies that need to follow up and give direction on what happens. While that is in order, and I'll be making a comment on the same, especially on the language that is used in the recommendations part of the report, Mr. Speaker, allow me to first just establish and
perhaps this is something that the committee would rather inform us better, because when you title the committee that it is more than 95 deaths in Shakahola, it's quite interesting because when we went out as a house and said we need a committee to inform us on exactly the number of people that died, it is my expectation, Mr. Speaker, unless I haven't been able to capture it appropriately in the report, it's quite voluminous, and I began reading actually yesterday and have moved on quite well this afternoon on what is the exact number of Kenyans that we have lost, Mr. Speaker, because it doesn't come out explicitly in the report